Well, thank you, gentlemen, for being here with us for our next session. So we're gonna explore how stadiums are evolving in current landscape, and also from their expertise. And so it's interesting how, again, as a fan and also as a sports journalist, how these stadiums and these assets are constantly evolving to bring a better experience for the fan. So the first question, and I'll ask to you, Cristian, how's the role of the stadium changed over the last decade?
So, is this on? Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's there's been quite a transformation. Brad and I were architects, so we obviously have the point of view from the architecture and the buildings and the infrastructure. But and I've been doing this for 30 years. So one of the biggest changes that I have seen is that we kind of shifted from seeing these buildings as stadium infrastructure to thinking of them more as business ecosystems. You know, we're thinking of them almost as a district and an ecosystem. So the shift was mainly from thinking about things like, you know, the capacity of the building, or ticket sales, or game day operations, to start thinking about, you know, revenue diversification, hospitality, fan experiences, thinking of the building itself and adjacencies to it as a real estate asset portfolio. We started thinking about how can these buildings become economically sustainable over time and kind of fulfill the needs and the wants of the community at the same time. And one of the things that we've come to realization, and this is true in the United States, but it's also true in Europe and Latin America, and some places in the Middle East as well, is that 20 games a year from a football match, for example, is not enough to really sustain these venues. They need to try to become 365-day-a-year venues. And in order to do that, we need to design them in such a way that they have the flexibility. They need to be multi-use. They need to be multi-sport. They need to be able to have concerts. You know, we have Harry Styles coming here very soon. You need to think about how, beyond the match day and even the concert, they become a venue where you have hospitality, where you have restaurants, where you have events like this, where they become a place that it's also going to be a community hub.
To me? Follow, yeah. Let me add on there a little bit. You know, so kind of drawing upon what Cristian was saying, it's even also, I think, kind of how we think about the venue. He mentioned the word community hub, and so it's not just about kind of the how it sort of performs on match day, and sort of this historically this idea that you kind of make your way to the event, you sit in your seat, you watch, and you're focused on the match. But instead, what we're really thinking about is how do we enhance the experience, a reason for people to have an even sort of heightened experience when they come to an event, and then how that can obviously draw them back. So the spaces that we're creating, you know, if we're kind of doing something different than what's been done before, as opposed to a place that is kind of this very, you know, singular and focused purpose, if you will. We're really trying to create spaces and experiences that, you know, are something that enhance that experience that you would have really no matter what's taking place at the venue. The other part to that, I think, is really thinking about it as a community hub. So, you know, how do we create spaces that are not just there when there's an event, but they're actually spaces that both contribute to the community and reflect the community? Because this is a way that, you know, obviously that you have that deeper engagement as well. So really thinking about the overall sort of sports anchored mixed use development as something that's, you know, authentically of the place, and a place that actually contributes to the community, and at the same time we can create unique experiences that reflect that, but also are, you know, are something that's a place of discovery every time that you come to the facility.
Sander, how about you? Cristian was mentioning about Harry Styles coming into the building, right? So in that particular example of not only seen as a stadium for football, particularly.
No. And this venue was, of course, developed as a multifunctional venue, and that's why we're very happy to have our first residency here with Harry Styles. But I completely, agree with the remarks of both gentlemen, because you're of course, our starting point is an existing venue here, right? But this area has been developed as an area where people come and stay, and it is our job to make sure that that area is so attractive as possible. And obviously here, it's not one ownership, so it's quite a diverse ownership with, we have shops, we have, the Ziggo Dome across the street, the AFAS Live, there's a large cinema here, you have the media market. I mean, they all run their own businesses, right? So this area is not designed as like a fully integrated area, but the challenge that we have and that we recognize is, how do you create this as one area to go? And that is, I think, the trigger and the million-dollar question also for us to create that 365-day venue. Because it's not only the venue itself, it's really that whole district that has to thrive. And there's a large community aspect to it. There's people that work here that come occasionally for events. So that all has to work, as a machine. And and of course the new technology will help us to facilitate that.
Mauro, any additional remarks from?
I mean that what Sander was commenting on, that this stadium has been designed, developed based with a clear vision. And often what you see with most stadium developments, that the number one mistake that's being made is that there is no clear vision of what do we want to do with this stadium. What is it that we need? What is it that we want to have? And what is it that we should have? And this causes many common mistakes that you see among stadiums. So there's either overbuilding, underbuilding. There's no clear business model. The stadium is being built. Then we start thinking, okay, how can we make money with this stadium? Instead of, what do we need to design? What do we need to develop so that we can actually make money with the stadium, so that it's a sustainable development? And if you look particularly at, also to comment a little bit on Sander, if you look particularly at mixed-use developments, you need to really consider, well, how do all these individual elements within a mixed-use development work together and coexist together without limiting their own operations? Yeah, you need to have, for all of these individual assets within such a mixed-use development, you need to have, let's say, an optimal situation. They need to be able to coexist. And then if you look specifically at operations, I think in stadium operations is something that is always undervalued in the design process. You should always consider it from the start, because in the end, for a successful stadium, it needs to have efficient operations. And if you haven't considered it well in the design phases, you'll end up with an operational nightmare, and then, well, you're stuck with the stadium for the next, let's say, 25, 50 years or even more.
Talking about, and you touched on that, and Cristian, the importance of mixed-use developments, right? How important are for the future of creating stadiums?
Yeah, I think nowadays mixed-use developments is something that we're seeing in every project. So we're doing about 36 different stadiums right now, and I would say out of those 36, about 34 of them have mixed-use development around them. And the reason is because the real estate play is very important for these projects to really pencil. Like, we see the pro formas for the team itself, for the stadium, and we look at them, and they are not the most attractive investments that investors can make. And when you add the real estate development and the mixed use around it, you start creating some kind of synergy between having something that pencils and a project that is sustainable over time economically, so the investors are happy, but also kind of fulfilling the dreams and aspirations of the community, while creating an engine of economic impact for the city and the municipality that becomes very attractive. And we're seeing so many different examples of sports-anchored mixed-use developments that have happened in the past 10 years that are complete successes. So it's so easy for us to go and say, look what we did in Atlanta. It's making a huge difference. We're seeing things like, P3 deals with PIF financing, which is obviously incremental financing based on the tax base. That that piece of land, which generally it's something that's revenue has like zero revenue and zero tax base, to calculating what the tax is going to be for the next 10 years, while with this new sports anchored mixed use development, that it's a great economic engine. And then they're providing the financing to build the stadium and all of this, and which obviously gets paid back over time. And then after that, it keeps generating taxes for the community, for the city, while obviously providing infrastructure for everybody to live, work, and play, which is actually a really good thing. And when we design these things, we literally go out to the community from the beginning and we ask, what is it that you want? And sometimes they ask us for things that you would never imagine. But then we go and we build that infrastructure for them and include it in the project, and everybody takes ownership. So you end up with an amazing state-of-the-art stadium for your team, but at the same time, parks and, padel courts and a racket club and fields for camps and community games that are available to everybody, and obviously an infrastructure for people to do things on a Friday night or a Saturday afternoon.
Another opportunity, from the mixed-use component. Cristian was talking a lot about, financial viability and sustainability that it brings. But from a design perspective, it also is a great opportunity just in terms of creating authenticity. So we really want to root these things in the local community context and culture. That's so much important too, even some of the things that he's describing, because if it's, simply the spaceship has landed and it's kind of a completely different thing than what's surrounding it, there's this lost opportunity to really kind of speak about the local place, speak about the club, and, just in general, I think, connect with the community and be a benefit to the community. So through the use of mixed use, we're able to add a lot of the items that Cristian was mentioning, whether it's apartments, hotels, retail, dining, entertainment, spaces that certainly from an economic standpoint add and contribute to the overall, success of the destination, of the place that we're creating. But from really creating something that's authentic and of the place and rooted in the place, that's something that we use, that mixed use development that's happening around it, as a tool. And of course, we're still doing that within the venue, and sort of the adjacent areas that are between the venue and the mixed use. But it's just a really great, it's a really great opportunity to create something that is not just a reflection of that community, but it really helps support and represent the neighborhood throughout.
And maybe to add, I think it's actually super interesting, and great examples, by the way, that are shown on the screen. If you think maybe 20 years ago, then if you would develop a new venue, you would look at, what you're referring to earlier, Mauro, is like, okay, so how big needs the venue to be? What kind of hospitality? What kind of? So you're looking at that mono business case / experience development that you're trying to create. Nowadays, you have to look at the entire area and then optimize the business case and the value case for the entire area. That's basically what you're also saying, Cristian. And that requires a different approach and also different capabilities, because to optimize that business case is way more complex than only optimize the case for a stadium. And a stadium is difficult, but if you look at the entire area, you have more opportunity to create value, both economical and social, being there for the community. So I think that approach, is something for the development of these projects is key. And then referring to us as an operator, for example, and as an operator consultant, that also means that you're going to operate this area as an area and not only as a stadium. So that means that you can look into personalization on a complete different level than just looking at the personalization of the fan experience in and just around that stadium. But you're looking at personalization in visiting the entire area. And that means that can be a Tuesday morning when somebody goes shopping, or that can be, you know, during an event, or it can be in between. And how does that all work together, you know, to create the maximum value? And that, I think, as an operator, that will be, you know, that's a fantastic outlook, because it will develop our industry much more. It needs to develop also other capabilities within our organizations. And overall, I think you can create more impact.
So it's kind of ironical that for a football stadium to be successful, you need more than football. Yeah. Like football is not enough. Yeah. Because most clubs cannot sustain any such investment. It's like, well, I would say opening a restaurant that's only open on Friday evening. From a business perspective, it doesn't make any sense. So that's always what interests me so much about the development of stadium, that just football is not enough. And, well, you simply need more than that.
Absolutely, yeah.
So talking about also what you need and what's not enough, let's talk about technology and data, and how is that changing stadium operations? Let's start with you, Sander.
Yeah, I think, I mean, over time, of course, we have seen the developments of, well, I think the word smart stadium is already around for the past 20 years, but, you know, it's now perhaps coming to a level where you can say, well, you know, we know that you could use that, or you could call that smart, perhaps. I mean, if you look at digital ticketing, of course, that made a difference, because, you know, the no-show went down. People are there, people are actually having a good time, and also spending on catering and on other services. If you look at look at how we deal with our food and beverage on the concourses. I mean, they're huge screens. You slow down the customer to make a choice, you know, and they actually spend more, you know, because of that technology. So you can be more efficient in your energy use. I mean, the energy bill nowadays becomes day by day, you know, even more important. So, you know, how do you limit that energy bill? So you're having technology that helps you with it, you know, help you achieve specific goals. However, we have to grow, of course, to a level where we can say, okay, let's organize that journey to the full extent, and let's facilitate so that when you come in, you're being recognized, and you know, so you really going to create that personal approach that you also see in retail, in some well-known retail outlets. So, you know, we're growing into this, and then coming back to my earlier words, not only for the stadium, but for the area, right? Because that will help you to become a 365 venue and to tap into all the other revenue streams that are there. And I think that is important. Of course, that has to be balanced with a feeling of well, you have to trust, you know, the environment that you're there, because you trust them with your data. Security has to be in place, but that's a requirement, of course. But trust in you know, the people managing that data is, of course, of fundamental importance.
Yeah, I'm glad that you actually gave the retail example, because that's the way I've had a lot of experience designing for retail and using technology as well. And actually, it's exactly the same thing. I mean, when we think about these things about stadiums, sometimes we shake our heads and we think that it's not the same, but it is. I think at some point we had brick and mortar retail, and we've seen with technology what's happened online. And basically, you know, companies like Amazon, they keep profiles of their customers, and they create customer journeys that happen way before you go to their website. You know, you're navigating online, and believe me, they have a lot of data, and they start pushing things to you and getting to you where you need to be. But once you're in there, it's not this evil thing. It's they're realizing, they're trying to figure out where you are and what your needs are, and they're going to try to personalize it in a way that it's going to motivate you to get the things that are associated to what you need, that are going to fit that problem that you're trying to solve. And all along a customer journey, all the way down to checkout, and hopefully afterwards. And these things are happening online, and they've been very successful for increasing revenue, for making things simpler, for facilitating purchasing things. So you could imagine applying that mentality to from the moment that you're pushing a certain event that's happening at the stadium, and you're suddenly seeing, oh wow, Harry Styles is coming. That's exactly my type of music, and that's the event that I saw. Not every single event that happens at the stadium, the one that I actually want to see. And then, like he said, the entire customer journey all the way to kind of upselling maybe some experiences, or maybe I want to be in a suite, or maybe there's a certain kind of fan experience that's been created in the stadium that matches what I want for that day because it's my birthday. And they can do some upselling and cater to my specific needs. So it's actually very similar, and we can't avoid it. And we need to create these profiles around our customers and actually use them in a positive way to just make everything seamless. For the technology to disappear and for things just to happen. Like the doors open when I get there, the lights go on. Suddenly I have my favorite drink in my hand and I'm in my favorite space. And maybe the suites or some kind of specific fan experience costs €400 more, and they're offering it for 100 because it's empty, and the fixed costs are exactly the same to maintain it, and it's better to have me in there, and I'm getting it for €100.
That's actually great examples, because that's exactly what you want to achieve, and that flexibility is what you're looking for, but you need technology to make that happen. And I think what I envision a couple of years from now, like here we have a command center, like in many other stadiums or in every stadium, you have a command center to look for safety and security, predominantly. A little bit of service as well, crowd flow, etc., but predominantly safety and security. Here we have a operational mobility center. So it's only looking at inflow and outflow and the traffic in the surrounding area, and all the people that are involved with that are in that same room managing traffic. Right now, we do not have a separate room where you strictly manage that fan experience, and you're continuously optimizing processes like the ones that you're describing, right? So I think in a few years from now, more and more venues will have, specific also locations in their stadium where they manage, fan experience on a quality level, but also expenditures. How can we, optimize it? How can we continuously put all these, turn these buttons to make sure that we reach our maximum, experience that we want to achieve, and the maximum revenues that we want to achieve, and limit the costs, and et cetera, et cetera. So, but that right now, in I would say 99% of the existing venues is not there yet, but will be there.
So real quick, I know that we're moving faster, but this is why I mentioned heightened experiences or elevated experiences. What I think we're really trying to do as we develop new facilities or modernize older facilities, but it's the same kind of thinking. Not only is there the technology component that can help us get there, but we actually have to design the spaces for that technology. In addition to, we actually have to design the spaces that make those choices available and desirable. So it's really a complete kind of rethink of what the stadium of the future is, so that it can accommodate both from a technological standpoint, but also from just kind of an infrastructure standpoint, to offer this place that people literally have not experienced before.
Yeah, I'm just going to summarize. Basically, you're creating a menu of experiences, and through the profiling and the technology, you can match what you want to that menu that's available.
Yeah. And on that note, I just like venues, for example, personally, I've been twinned with Dome and facial recognition, and how, as a fan, data is so important, right? So on that note, which technologies do you believe will have the biggest impact in the next decade?
Yeah, and I'll just summarize it, but I think AI, obviously, both in what we were just talking about, creating profiles for customers and how the building's being used, and predicting, making sure it's the most secure as well for security, and predicting, bottlenecks and all these kinds of things, and also for player performance. We're building a lot of computer vision and interactions, interfaces for wearables and things like that the players are using. So both for the games and also their training facilities and so forth, and also creating player profiles as well, so that we can match everything from everything that has to do with performance trading and sports medicine and all of this as well. I think AI is going to be a big one. Another one is digital twins. So you can create a digital twin of your building, and then again, you can optimize operations for security, know everybody where everybody is. You can also do something else, which I think is going to be key. Well, obviously, with biometrics, you can have people have seamless flows and know exactly where they are. So that's kind of the trigger. If you don't know who they are, like in retail, we were talking to Amazon.com, for example, it's your IP address, right? Your profile. Well, how do you know when somebody's walking around? I think biometrics also has a layer of that. And the third, and the fourth one is, I think immersive experiences are going to be really important. I think our kids, you know, have a 9-year-old and a 12-year-old, and for them, I don't think they see kind of the intersection between digital and physical experiences because they were born into this. They're playing video games. They're doing all these things that seem real to them. And I think we're going to have digital overlays in stadiums, both for navigation, for providing data while watching the game and so forth, and for, you know, optimizing things like F&B and other things as well.
Yeah, I think agree with everything. I think for us also in looking at the venue operations, AI is a game changer, of course, because it enables us to get live analytics, live feedback, a lot of intelligence that we can add to take better strategic and operational decisions. So, and tactical decisions actually also. So that will be definitely a game changer. But for existing venues, there's definitely some homework to do because, you know, it's not designed in as such, but obviously this is technology that you can actually, you know, implement in existing venues. Yeah.
We're doing projects, and obviously Vegas is a place where it's about fantasy and, you know, doing different things for a few days, so to speak. But we're doing projects where the stadium becomes a platform for shared experiences. So you could imagine how digital overlays, maybe you can have streaming of a World Cup game that's happening somewhere else, or a concert. Or, you know, imagine the halftime show, if you could have three-dimensional overlays in them as well.
In terms of, this is a tricky question, and I like this question. How do stadiums balance premium experiences with while keeping the authentic fan experience? Because that's also a difficult balance, right, to manage.
You want to answer that, Brad?
Yeah. So, you know, again, we've talked a lot about this, I think, kind of through this panel. But I think part of kind of understanding, at least for me, the future of designing premium experiences, it's not something that is, and maintaining authenticity, by the way, this is a key part of it. It's not something that, I mean, there's some amazing spaces that you have in venues already. But in many cases, they almost serve as a separator or a break between what's happening in terms of what you're experiencing during the event, during the match. You know, they're at a break, a time off versus kind of during that experience itself. So the premium experiences that we're really focused on are ones that are elevating the experience that you have. Ones that don't separate you from the moment, but instead actually enhance the moment. And there's many different ways that we do that, but I would say one very simple thing that we've been doing more and more in facilities more recently is sort of bringing that hospitality space, that premium space, literally to the pitch or to the event, whatever it may be. So, you know, things like a 360-degree concourse that isn't lined fully with premium areas like you would think of a suite or a club where you can see the pitch, but moments where you can see the pitch even if you're not in one of those spaces. You know, secondarily, can we bring that concessions component, food and beverage component, make it highly, you know, personalized to a local culture community in terms of local food and beverage, but instead of having to sneak back behind the seats and miss the one goal that's going to be scored the entire match, instead we're actually trying to bring those spaces to the pitch. So having premium areas set within sort of the lower bowl or the upper bowl, or different areas that sort of offer that opportunity to kind of enhance the experience, but never have to make that choice from leaving view of the pitch or the event and going to get it because it's already there and it's already part of the experience.
One of the things that we see is that in the stadiums we've worked on is that 50% of the revenue comes from 20% of the seats. And those are the premium ones. And what we've seen, when we ask owners that are already operating their stadium what they would have done different, they say premium, premium, premium. They would have added more because it really makes a difference. So basically for us, premium is, yes, the premium areas, like the most premium areas are becoming more sophisticated. They're becoming more the Four Seasons, so to speak, than something in the middle. And then in general admission and everywhere else, we're also creating diversified experiences that are different than your typical seat. They're less expensive. It could be a beer garden, a party terrace, or whatever it may be, but you have a greater amount which matches what your audience is. You know, you can segment your demographics and what your audience wants, and you create all those experiences. You have a larger menu of them that they can match up with, and they're willing to pay that premium, and those are the most profitable spaces.
I think that is also the key to keep the experience level and not, you know, move away from the general crowd, what you're referring to. Like, so, you know, it's about, you know, keeping the larger crowd, let's say the non-premium part of the crowd, which is, you know, by far the biggest part of the crowd, close to the action, but still there is a lot of opportunity to diversify. So I completely agree with that, because sometimes we call it GA plus, or you call it whatever you call it, but it's about, you know, adding, you know, little touches here and there, little different experiences that everyone is actually enjoying without, you know, taking away from the atmosphere, or without, you know, going overboard on, let's say, on a 4-star hotel experience, but like, you know, creating cool, intimate fan experience. Yeah.
Well, and just one more thing I was thinking about. This is not just a solution for the next new stadium or what we can do in the future. We're doing major modernizations of existing stadiums right now, where it's kind of this concept of addition by subtraction. So taking away potentially a couple thousand of your cheapest seats and actually creating an environment that still is targeted towards probably the typical buyer of that seat, but it's done so in the way that it's more of a viewing terrace with an integrated bar. And so you have this opportunity to actually, you know, create a place that people want to be. You know, they're taking their selfies and they're enjoying the moment. They're still engaged in the you know, what's happening on the pitch. But it's actually taking a seat that was sort of the cheapest seat in the house and turning it into one of the most sought after seats in the house. So we're doing a lot of that in existing venues that we're modernizing now too.
Yeah, and no, that's really interesting. Same thing. I was just reading an article, like say with airlines happening the same thing, like going to premium, right? Same as the stadiums. Mauro, I want to ask you, and I'll lead with you. What are the biggest mistakes you see in with clubs and cities developing new stadiums?
I mean, coming back to what I previously also said is that, for example, if you want to have like Brett spoke about, have a diversified hospitality offering, you need to know before you start developing already. So you need to be very sure, what is my market capable of, and what are the user groups, not just spectators, but even what do my players want? What do I need for operational stuff? What do I need for, I don't know, my security stuff? What do I need for the media personnel coming to the stadium, making use of the stadium? You need to know very well what they need so that your design is aligned to the needs of those people. Another issue that also comes back to why we see more diversification in let's say, premium hospitality experience and also GA plus or GA as such, is that, well, you need to have a sustainable business model. Like you simply cannot afford to buy something that is or to build something that is underused. You cannot. I mean, we cannot justify the construction of white elephants anymore. We've done that for so many years in stadium development, and it's simply not. It's not sustainable. We shouldn't do it.
I think something else that's important is flexibility. There's an image that's up on the screen now. That's a fully 100% modular stadium that can, you know, everything can change. It can grow. It can double the seating capacity in a month. You can add suites, you can subtract suites. Suites can become bigger suites. They can become triple suites. You can add terraces. You can take away terraces. It can transform for very different type of sports that need to happen there. Now, obviously, that's a solution. Maybe it's even a temporary stadium. But I think we can apply this mentality to larger, more conventional stadiums that have modular and flexibility kind of designed into them. Because the reality is that the world is changing so quickly, and the building needs to adapt to what's going to happen tomorrow, which we don't really know what it is. We saw it in like the design of hospitals. They started becoming modular. Why? Because technology changed so quickly. Suddenly you have these incredible MRI machines, and we have different flows that they needed to be flexible and modular so they could adapt so they don't become obsolete. So we're seeing this in stadiums. We're doing at least 10 different modular type stadiums that are happening. Some of them is because we're doing renovations of existing stadiums, and they need to go play somewhere for a while, and then that gets taken apart and moved somewhere else. But many of them has to do with, we want to have this open 365 days a year. We want to be able to do every single kind of event that you could ever imagine in a very flexible way. And this is something that can be manufactured quickly, it can be installed quickly, and it can be deployed very fast as well.
Maybe to add to the adaptivity, because I think it's super important, because it's difficult to foresee what people will ask 5 years from now, let alone 15 years from now. It's kind of ironic, because in this room we are in 1996 when the stadium opened. These pillars here, that was the facade of the building. Here, there's another building, and we actually filled up the entire space over the full length of the pitch to create this area for hospitality purposes and for business events as this one, right? So it wasn't there, back then. So that the way that is even possible to do so, let alone, of course, we have to finance it out of the operation and so on, but also to make it physically, that it physically fits and is possible. Yeah, that is a good sign of creating that adaptivity into the design.
Absolutely, awesome. I love the word flexibility for the future. And lastly, to close our session, I wanted to ask you, what would define success for stadiums over the next decade? And I want to start, you guys give your take in that last.
So we are doing what we call the Stadium of the Future in Vegas. And the intent in the program that the client gave us was, we want to create a destination that people will come from all over the world to experience something that they're going to experience 10 years from now. And I think that it has to do with how it integrates into the city. How do you create really a destination with a resort kind of mentality around the stadium, so it becomes more of a kind of sports and entertainment complex just in a stadium. So we have, you can stay at a hotel and suddenly you go down in the elevator and you are in an entertainment complex that has obviously a casino because it's Vegas and things like that, but it's integrated. You can go directly into your suite and watch the game or watch the concert. Like you're living for that certain period of time, be it an afternoon or a day or a week, a sports and entertainment venue. And then we're layering on top of all of the things that we just talked about. It's unique to its location. It has the technology overlay. You can arrive in drones, and these drone taxis flying, and you park and you go directly into your suite. You can, this is the image that you're seeing is when you arrive from any kind of transportation, being in a tunnel, in a self-driving car, the drone, you're immediately in the venue. What you're seeing in the horizon is the actual kind of suites that are attached to the entertainment area where there's restaurants and everything else. So I think, and then obviously we're adding all the technology. Like you'll see a hologram that appears and it takes you to your seats and you can interact and talk with it and ask it things, and you even ask it even can request what you want to drink, what you want to eat, and things will come to you. So it's kind of this metaverse or kind of The facades will have 3D elements in which the detailing of the architecture changes, which we're designing digitally because you can make these 3D illusions on it. So you'll be able to stream events that are happening somewhere else. So I think that there's a lot of aspirations. I think some of these will survive, some won't. It's a good experiment. But I think all these things that we're talking about will either incrementally or together create a different vision of a stadium more as a platform than just a standalone venue.
Well put, and I'll keep it a little short. I think an important one is, just a very obvious one, is think before you act. So let's make a plan first. This is obviously something that fits in Vegas, where you have to blow away people with experiences. In a different location, you come to, of course, a different plan. But you know, it's all about, you know, it has to fit in locally. So you have to do the research and all that, and create a really sound business plan, and preferably a program of requirements. Please involve an operator like ourselves, a consultant operator, to help you identify, you know, the operational hiccups and optimize it also from that angle. I would say secondly, you know, look at it from a district. We talked about it extensively in the panel, so definitely regard everything I said before, like not only as a stadium, but as a district. So not a business plan for a stadium, business plan for the district. I think a more practical one for more existing venues, I would say start creating your experience command center in your stadium. And that should drive, you know, and that can be done very quickly, and it doesn't require a full-on new stadium. It does require technology, but I think there's so much to win with, you know, actually connecting the existing dots, connecting the existing data sources already, and you know, create more value in your venue or around your venue.
I think that my hopes for the future are a little bit lower. I agree with the rest of the panel that there's a big future in technology and in experiences. But also coming back a little bit to the words of Sander, you need to have a good set of requirements, of operational principles, of design standards as the foundation for the design of your venue, and combine it with a very, very good business plan. And for me, that really is the key to a successful stadium development. We see that in many stadiums, we still don't even have the basics right when it comes to design, operations, visitor experience, let's say match day experience, or even commerce. So yeah, I think that there's still also a lot to win in that area for sure.
The future of stadiums will be a highly elevated experience that's personalized for each of the visitors that come. And at the same time, it will be not just set into a community or a part of a community, but literally be a benefit and something that promotes and reflects the community in which it is set within. So yeah, that's what I
think something that's very important, I'm just going to summarize it. I think that things are inexpensive on paper, right? So us architects, we all say when we're on paper, like when we're designing and planning, you can make all the mistakes in the world, but once you start building, changing anything is very complex. So I think when you bring together architects and people like our collaborators that are here, that we're working together in a lot of these projects, and we can do this proper planning from like the operations and the business side and the long-term aspirations of the community and all these things that we've been talking about it, and then design a venue that kind of reflects that. That's one of the things that it's going to create the success, and it will be a different thing in each place because there's different budgets, it's different sizes. Every place is unique, but that's the starting point, and that's how you need to work with teams that have ops, business, design, and all this to make this dream a reality that's successful.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you for such an insightful talk. Please, a big round of applause for our panelists. Thank you so much.